So, what we're doing over the next few weeks is we are highlighting a different staff member or leader from BridgePoint Church to give you all as a church an opportunity to get to know a little bit more about us. So here today we've got Kevin Haggerty, and wanted to start off simply by having Kevin answer some questions and allowing you all to get to know him a little bit. So the first question then for you is tell us about your Christian walk, how you became a Christian, when you became a Christian, maybe some of the circumstances surrounding that.
So I grew up in a Christian home pretty much my whole life. My parents got saved right before I was born, and I was in church every opportunity that I could be, Awana, Sunday school, Sunday, everything. And I was 6 years old when I came home and prayed the prayer with my mom. I think it was one of those things where I meant it as sincerely as a 6-year-old can mean something, but as I grew up and got older, it was something that I wrestled with. Was it really real? Was it my faith, or was it just something I thought that I was supposed to do, something I was supposed to say? So when I was 11 years old, I went to a summer camp, and I rededicated my life to the Lord at that point, which it's difficult to say if it was a rededication, if it was my first salvation experience, but I do feel like that at that point I knew what I was doing, and it was a choice that I was making on my own. So did that at summer camp, and then when we got back, I was baptized at the church that we were going to, and from there it's just been a lifelong journey of getting to know Jesus better.
Tell us a little bit about your family.
So I'm married to Kim. I think if you're on a game show, you're supposed to say my beautiful wife, right?
Something like that.
Right. My beautiful wife, Kim. She is beautiful. It just feels forced on the game shows. And then I have 3, and we've been married this year. It'll be 10 years.
When's the anniversary?
October 10th. Yep.
10 years.
10. We got married on a date that I couldn't possibly forget. So,
okay.
Yeah, 10 years. And then we have a 6-year-old named Aiden, a 4-year-old named Emily, and a 2-year-old named Lucy.
What about your call to ministry? You went to Liberty University. Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, you and my wife were at Liberty at the same time together. Yep. When did you sense God was calling you into ministry? What did that experience look like for you?
So, like I said before, I grew up in the church. I grew up in a Christian home, Christian parents. My dad was a pastor for almost 20 years. And so I feel like where I fit into that was something that I always kind of wrestled with and struggled with. And right after my time at Liberty, my time in college, I feel like was a season of searching, figuring out who I was, what I wanted to do. And probably after those 2-3 years is when I started to get more serious, just kind of with life in general, and started to seek what I wanted to do with my life, how that fit into the church and leadership. And so it was at that point, I think I was about 28, 29 years old, that I started teaching at a private Christian school, Denby Baptist. And so teaching is a ministry in itself. It's not just a ministry to the kids. You're ministering to the parents and the families. I was a basketball and a baseball coach, and so same thing there. There's a lot of ministry that's happening. And I learned a lot about myself. I was a teacher and a coach for 6 years there. And it was really during that time, I think, that I realized that it was something that I'd been pushing back against, something I'd been fighting against, the call to the ministry. So my wife Kim and I moved to Gloucester in 2011 from Newport News, where we had been living. Just loved the community, loved the way that people were and the way that people are, the friendliness of Gloucester. Wanted to raise a family somewhere that was like that had those kind of family ideals. And so we were looking for a church at that point, and it took us about a year to settle into a place that we found home, and that was when we found BridgePoint. And it was really during that year that I feel like my call to ministry was something that was really cemented in me, something that I really felt strongly about. That it was time to kind of get off the bench and use my talents and giftings to minister and to shepherd and to lead, and it's kind of really been no looking back since then.
And you were ordained at BridgePoint?
I was, yep.
Okay. So you are our creative arts pastor.
Mm-hmm.
When I came to BridgePoint, you were in a volunteer capacity, and then by God's grace, we were able to bring you on staff. You carry a lot of, you wear a lot of hats. You're a man of many talents. You carry a lot of responsibilities. Tell us about some of the stuff you do around BridgePoint.
Yeah, so the main, I guess I would consolidate it into a few different baskets. The main one is, and if you see me on Sundays, then you know that leading the Sunday worship ministry is the chief thing that I'm responsible for, which means picking the songs, leading the team, leading the band, the production, all the things that go into the Sunday worship service and all of the elements for the services. Then throughout the week, there's the cultivating of the team, the volunteers, that community, all of what goes into having a healthy environment to serve in. And then additionally, I also handle all of the media for the church. So social media, print media, if we're designing a sign, things like that. So all of really the creative elements of BridgePoint are things that I either do myself or oversee those aspects.
Tell us about your interests. Outside of BridgePoint, what do you like to do? And then I got another question for you after that.
Okay. So I've always kind of been somebody who's pretty immersed in what I do in my job. Particularly when it comes to ministry, I've always felt like ministry is not a job, it's a calling, which sounds cheesy and cliche, but it's true. I think if you're doing it for a paycheck, then you shouldn't probably be doing it. So it's hard for me to turn my BridgePoint brain off. I feel like there is no clocking in, clocking out. I'm always trying to think about ways that we can be doing things better. So, which can be a plus and a minus at the same time. I got to remember that I'm home with my wife and my kids, which that's my favorite hobby. I don't know if that's a cop-out of an answer, but
that's a good one.
Spending time with my wife and my kids, they're just my world, and there's nothing that's more important to me than that. So just seeing my kids grow up and develop and their personalities and the things that they're into. So I've got a long way to go as a husband and a father, but working on those things and just being with family, and that's what I enjoy the most. I also love sports, so if I get an opportunity to and it's not interfering with family things, I'll watch some basketball or get involved in that way.
You've been in and around BridgePoint for a long time. Mm-hmm. Thinking about the present and the future, what excites you?
The thing that excites me the most, I think, is seeing the way certain people have stepped up over the last year or two, seeing the growth of certain people in our church that really weren't involved in any kind of leadership or ownership capacity, and just seeing the way that God has raised them up and grown them. The spiritual health of the church. It's not perfect. We're not a perfect church. We never will be. But the trajectory, I feel like, is a really positive direction. And God has just been good to us and brought us a lot of new families over the last, I say year, but even more recent than that, really within the last 6 months. That's just been really cool to see how God has specifically brought those families to us, and the way that they're serving and fueling our ministry, but the way that we're able to hopefully give back to their family too.
Anything else you'd like to share about yourself, about the church? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like if I had one thing that I would want people to know, it's that I am approachable. And I say that I hope people think that I am approachable. That's something that I strive to be and that I work on. And so I want, if people have questions for me, questions about who I am, what I do, the worship department, why we played or sang a song or any of those things, I don't want that stuff to be off limits. I'd rather it probably not be right after the service on Sunday. There's certain kind of ways that we can go about that, but as far as answering questions and just being open to everyone at our church about who I am and why we do what we do, I would welcome that, because I think that there's a level of transparency and vulnerability that you should expect from me and that you should expect from our leadership team. And if we ever seem too busy, we are busy. I don't want to give the impression that we're just hanging out not doing anything, but we're not too busy to be there for you and to answer questions and just be open about who we are and why we do what we do.
The role of the staff in the life of the church is important, but important in different ways. The responsibilities that God gives are not the same. And I was sharing with Kevin that the responsibility that he carries to lead us as a church to the heart of God in worship, and then beyond that, to communicate not just to us, but to the broader community, Gloucester and beyond, through an online presence, which is a tool. It's a powerful tool in the hands of God to communicate the love of Jesus Christ and the gospel. That mantle of responsibility on Kevin's shoulders is massive. It is a heavy responsibility. And I thank you for serving us and serving us well and serving the Lord in the way you do it.
One of the things that I would want to speak to is what worship is and what it means to me personally, because there are a lot of people that sing well and are musically talented, and there are a few things that I would want people to know about our worship ministry in general, hopefully without sounding heavy-handed or high and mighty, because that's really not the way that I mean it, but I do believe that leading worship is different from singing songs. That's not what we do. We do sing songs, but what my hope is that I will be able to, and my team will be able to, lead our people into a meaningful encounter with God each and every Sunday through song. But that's just the avenue that we take to approach that. So it means something. The songs that we pick means something. It's not just if it sounds good, if it's my preference. We put a lot of time and prayer and thought into the songs that we select. They need to be theologically and doctrinally sound. They need to be songs that are worshipful. They don't just make us feel good, because worship is not about us feeling good. It's about worshiping God and telling Him that He's worthy. So those are things that I would want people to know about our worship ministry, that it's not just making music. It's a thoughtful and prayerful and intentional approach to leading our people into a meaningful encounter with God every Sunday. And then the other thing that I would want people to know is, I'll get questions from time to time as far as, how do you pick people for the band and for the production team and all of those things? Are there auditions? And so my answer to that question is, it's a little bit lengthy, and I'll try to consolidate as much as I can, but it's not American Idol and it's not open mic tryouts, because like I said, this is something that I believe is a calling, that needs to be a calling. And so we're looking for people who are committed to worship as the sole thing that they're looking to do. That's the thing that they're called to. It doesn't mean that they can't be involved in other ministries, but I'm really seeking after people who are worship leaders. You know, something that we say all the time is that the people who run the slides in the back for presentation, they're worship leaders too. We're leading worship as a team. So if you have a gift, but you also have a heart for leading our church in worship and leading them to a meaningful encounter with God, those are the people that I'm looking for. So if that's you, then I would love to talk with you personally, one-on-one, get to know you first. And that's typically how we do things. It's not really open audition. Approach me or ask one of the other band or presentation team members. And I would love to sit down with you and talk about what that could mean. But we're looking for worshipers. We're looking for worship leaders, because there is a responsibility there. It's something that I tell our team on a regular basis. I don't want it to be a burden, but I want you to feel this. I want this to be a responsibility that every single week you wear that. There's a weight to it, because there is a responsibility. Mm-hmm. We're not just getting up and making music.
How can the church be praying for you when God brings you to people's minds?
So I think first and foremost, just that I'm leading well in my home, that I'm being the kind of shepherd there that I need to be everywhere else, that I'm being a good husband and a good father to my kids, and when I say good, I mean that I'm doing that biblically and that I'm growing because if I'm failing there, everywhere else doesn't really matter. And the other thing, just that I would be a good and patient and humble leader in the church, and that I'm constantly reminded of the fact that I'm just a vessel, that ego and pride will never be issues for me, and that God will help me to manage my time well, and just give me the strength and the boldness and the grace that I need to lead.
Thanks for being here at my house today. Thanks for doing the video. And again, we hope that you, BridgePoint, are both edified, built up, encouraged in your own faith, but also challenged to keep your leadership before the Lord in prayer because of the calling that's on our shoulders. And so we wanted to do these videos for you to get to know us more and pray for us, please, increasingly. Thank you.